Now, today I wanted to talk to you about this idea around comparison. And I feel like a lot of us spend a lot of time comparing ourselves to other people's relationships. Now, whether you're single, this episode is for you, or whether you're in a relationship, this episode is for you. If you're single, you may compare your love life to other people's dating love lives, to other people who are in relationships. And if you're in a relationship, you might be comparing your relationship to other people's relationships. Think of White Lotus Season 2. If you didn't see it, I'm sorry, bad reference. But if you did see it, you remember this idea where you've got these couples comparing themselves to each other. You've got these couples comparing their partners to other people's partners. So what we find is that we often compare ourselves as a person to other people. We compare our partner to other people, and we compare our relationship to other people's relationships. So you may have heard something like, oh, well, I don't think they really get along. I don't think that they really have that much in common. Oh my gosh, did you see those two people together? They didn't look good for each other at all, did they? Oh my gosh, have you seen how much they argue? At least we don't argue that much, right? There's all these ways we're constantly comparing us, our partners, and our relationships to other people. Now, this may sound harmless and it may sound like not a big deal, but the studies actually show the opposite. A research study from over 10 years ago, so I can't even imagine how much this is scaled up now, showed that individuals who compare themselves to others are more likely to experience guilt, regret, and envy. Comparing ourselves to others makes us feel more guilty, more regretful, and more envious. And the core reason for that is because when we compare ourselves to someone else, we're usually looking at what we don't have. We're usually looking at what we could be. We're usually looking at how we're behind, how we're late, how we're wrong, how we're not good enough. We're not comparing with the idea of studying. We're not comparing with the idea of learning. We're not comparing with the idea of curiosity. So comparing in and of itself doesn't need to be a negative thing. We don't need to shame or guilt ourselves for comparing ourselves. And I think society's done that sometimes where we feel that the act of comparison or the act of comparing ourselves to others is something that we should look down upon. But actually it can be useful, it can be helpful, it can be insightful in guiding you towards your greatest self. Now, I want to share a few more studies to really dive into this topic. One study revealed that 40% of women feel more unhappy about their relationship due to viewing other couples on social media. How many of you have ever saw someone getting proposed to, someone's engagement party, someone's bridal shower, someone's wedding pictures, and all of a sudden your blood is boiling. You're thinking to yourself, I wish that was me. Why can that be me? What's it about me, right? We make it all about our deficiencies, our flaws, our fallibilities, our inadequacies. And that's why comparison can be so unhealthy. Because what it does is it puts this spotlight on all of our weaknesses and everything we don't have, as opposed to focusing on what we can learn and how we can grow and what we could improve. Now, in psychology, there's something known as social comparison theory. And there are two types of social comparison. One's upward social comparison and the other's downward social comparison. So upward comparison is when we compare ourselves with people we believe to be better than us. So these comparisons are often looking at how we could make more money, how we could look better, how we could appear better, how we could improve our status. And this tends to make us feel worse about ourselves because we do it from a position of envy. Now, the other type is downward social comparison. This is when we compare ourselves to others who are worse off than us. So we say things like, oh, well, at least I'm more educated. At least I work harder. At least I'm doing better than that person is. Now, it's natural for us to do both of these, but the upward comparison, when we're comparing ourselves to people who we think are better looking, make more money, smarter, when we do that through envy rather than study, it makes us feel really down. Now, one of the most interesting things about this is we often do it to our partners behind closed doors. So now you may not say in front of someone else, but how many times have you looked at your partner and said, oh yeah, you know so-and-so? Did you know they just got promoted? Now, you're not comparing or criticizing, but you're passively making a point which almost really devalues the individual in front of you. Maybe you've said something like, oh, did you know so-and-so's partner, they just started their own company? Like, how bold, how amazing is that? Now, even if you're saying that as a genuinely true positive, and you don't mean it as a dig or a diss to your partner, I promise you inside, even if outside they say to you, no, doesn't affect me at all. I promise you inside, it's affecting their confidence and their self-worth. When you're saying things where you're pointing out amazing abilities, talents, achievements in others, your partner often doesn't hear that from you. Your partner often doesn't get the accolades, doesn't get that respect. And you may say, oh, they know I love them. They know how special I think they are. They know how much I love them and how much I respect them. I promise you they don't. Most of the people I talk to when I'm coaching them, when I'm talking to people one-on-one behind the scenes, most people are yearning for validation, for approval, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, for someone to notice how genuine they are, how kind they are, how loving they are. Most people need that. And one of the reasons why we live in a world which repeats negativity is because positivity isn't rewarded. If someone does something negative to us, we'll spend the next week amplifying it and broadcasting it. That person cut me off in traffic. That person was so rude to me at work. We'll talk about it for days and days and days. But if someone does something good to us, we rarely tell everyone in the world saying, oh my gosh, did you know this person went out of their way? Did you know this person? They stood up for me. Like, we don't tell the same stories about positive events and emotions. We tell deeper, darker stories about negative emotions more frequently, more often, and more deeply and more vividly, with more description, right? If someone swore at you or someone did something bad at the airport, like, you're telling every detail. Why am I sharing this? It's because often when we compare our partners to others, or even if we don't compare our partners, we talk about the qualities someone else that we know has. It can often make them feel less than. It can often make them feel worse. All we have to do is switch shoes. And by the way, it's really easy for all of us to say, oh, this doesn't affect me. It's not a big deal. But we know deep down it can, and it does. So when you're looking at upward social comparison or downward social comparison, generally downward social comparison in saying, oh yeah, we're doing better than them. We're doing, better for ourselves. That generally doesn't have as many a negative impact, although I don't recommend it because, again, you're building your platform on someone else's misery. You're building your confidence on someone else's lack of competence. You're building your connection based on criticism, which means if you're starting with a low bar and you're higher than it, it may not be the most inspiring or fulfilling way to think about it. An upward comparison, telling someone that you know someone who's more ambitious, telling someone you know someone who's better at gardening, telling someone you know someone who's better at handiwork around the house, whatever it may be, actually takes away from your relationship. So what can we do? What do we do instead of compare our partners and ourselves to others? Well, something we can do is choose to connect, compliment, and help people understand what qualities they do have. When we can see potential in our partners and remind them of that potential without comparing them to other people, that spurs them forward, that pushes them forward. If you have a partner who's going through a tough time because they're building a company, because they're trying to go after that promotion at work, because they're trying to figure it out, noticing that is going to energize them more. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you are thinking, Jay, but my partner's lazy. My partner doesn't work hard enough. I want my partner to do better. I want my partner to work out more. I want my partner to do all of these things more. The first question you have to ask yourself is, are you doing all of those things? I remember ever since I met Radhi, I've talked to you about this before, she was coaching me in health, well-being, diet, workouts. And what I found in the way she did it was that it was never out of judgment. I never felt guilty or shameful that I didn't do certain things. But I saw not only did she apply everything she said to me, she lived it, she was actually practicing it. She also was able to present it to me in a way that I could digest and understand it. So the question is, are you practicing what you preach? And are you able to present it without judgment, without guilt, without shame? Those are the two tests for you to figure out whether you're encouraging your partner or whether you're disempowering them. Are you energizing them or are you de-energizing them? The other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize or we miss is that everyone has different values. So when we compare ourselves to another couple, it's because they may have a completely different value. Like, let's say you're thinking about how you spend money and you'd be like, oh my gosh, can you believe they spend that much money on that? We would never do that. But maybe their value is traveling and your value is saving right now. They might be in a season of exploration and you're in a season of saving to put down a deposit on an apartment or a home or whatever it may be. Everyone can be in different seasons. This is one of the reasons that I partnered up with Match.com/J and why I'm working with Match to help people connect based on their values. I think what often happens is we don't know our own values and we don't recognize them deeply. And so what we're really comparing when we compare ourselves or our relationship to anyone else is values. That's why figuring out what your value is and what your partner's value is such an important way of figuring out the value of your relationship, the priorities of your relationship. And if you're looking for someone right now, you can go check out Match.com/J and you'll be able to connect with people based on similar values. You don't need the same values, but an awareness of values to have a conversation, to have a connection is so important and so significant. Some of the ways in which we can switch away from comparing ourselves to other people's relationships is this. Let us sit down and realize what are our values, and let's actually break down and do some thinking about what that person's value is. Now, sometimes you'll even be right. Maybe some people don't value respect in their relationship and you do value it. And that's great to point out to yourselves. Look, this is a good thing that we're doing. But here's the trick. Focus more on the good you're doing than the bad someone else is doing. Someone's weaknesses may highlight your strengths, but use that as an opportunity to amplify your strengths, not talk more bad about them. Like, let's say you go out on a double date and one of your friends, you feel like they don't have respectful communication. Now, you can either sit there on your car journey home or when you get into bed and you're talking about, gosh, can you believe how disrespectful they were and how bad they were? Or you could talk about how respectful you think your partner has been to you or how valuable they've been to you. And they can do the same back. And that kind of communication is actually strengthening your relationship. It's actually building deeper bonds with your partner as opposed to what happens when we just talk bad about other people. You don't want the success of your relationship to be based on the stress of others. You don't want the goodness of your relationship to be based on the poor performance of someone else. Again, where are we setting the bar? What do we truly want from life? Another thing that I find when we're comparing ourselves to others is we make it often feel like it's impossible for us to reach there, for us to get there, rather than looking at what would it take. Instead of asking the question, what would it take for us to get there? What would it take for us to build there? We talk about why theirs isn't working. I'll be honest, managing money has always been something I've had to stay mindful about. It feels like everywhere you turn, someone's trying to make you spend. That's where Acorns comes in. Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. Sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Plus, Acorns will boost your new account with a $20 bonus investment. Offer available at acorns.com/purpose. That's acorns.com/PURPOSE to get your $20 bonus investment today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 6 compensation provided. Investment involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/purpose.
I'm Cheryl Swoops, WNBA champ, 3-time Olympian, and Basketball Hall of Famer. I'm a mom, and I'm a woman.
I'm Tarika Foster Brasby, journalist, sports reporter, basketball analyst, a wife, and I'm also a woman.
And on our new podcast, we're talking about the real obstacles women face day to day.
See, athlete or not, we all know it takes a lot as women to be at the top of our game.
We want to share those stories about balancing work and relationships, motherhood, career shifts. You know, just all the shit we go through.
Because no matter who you are, there are levels to what we experience as women.
And T and I, well, we have no problem going there.
Listen to Levels to This with Cheryl Swoops and Tarika Foster Brasby, an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How many steps does it take to cure blood cancer? We won't know until it happens, but when you register for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Big Climb, you can help get us closer. It's your time to join communities nationwide, to climb iconic buildings and arenas all over the country, to give patients, survivors, and families the support they need at every step of a diagnosis. Go to LLS.org and sign up now. You can also join our nationwide virtual climb from anywhere and show up for blood cancer patients. Go to LLS.org. That's LLS.org.
One tip that I want to give you is I find that we spend more time comparing ourselves to others when we don't have our own goals. If you as a relationship have a goal, you're going to compare yourself to your goal, not to another relationship, right? If you're watching a comedy movie and your goal is to laugh, you're not going to compare the comedy movie to a horror movie because you knew what you wanted. Whereas if you didn't know what you wanted and you turned up at the theaters, you'll be going, well, should we go see a comedy movie or do we go see a horror movie? Oh, but I don't like that actor and I don't like that actress. And you're making it based on no direction. Whereas if you said, you know what? I just need to laugh today. You know what? I'm in the mood for a thriller today. Now, all of a sudden, you're not comparing as much to a random other movie with a random set of data.